following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana Kersner, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health, using my top 10 sayings for checking in with your best self. This week, we're talking emotional self-invalidation, the way your abusers continue to hurt you after they're gone. I've got Aquila, one of my facilitators, back to talk about her own experiences with self-invalidation. But first, a few validating words from me. Emotional invalidation is the act of dismissing or rejecting someone's thoughts, feelings, or behaviors in a way that says your feelings are wrong or don't matter. And yes, because you are someone, you can do it to yourself. This doesn't mean you can't object to someone's behavior or think you did something wrong. You just have to object to another person's behavior or think you did something wrong in a way that doesn't reject their or your feelings. Example, you could tell someone to stop calling you names and still acknowledge that they have a right to be angry. Make sense? Good. All right. Emotional invalidations, however, happen so often that some people might not be going, right? Because they happen so often at home, at work, with friends, at the local coffee shop. It happens all the time. They're normal. We don't see certain phrases as invalidating because, well, everybody does it, right? You've probably heard one of these phrases. Don't let them get to you. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're taking this too personally, or this isn't personal. Just let it go. You shouldn't feel that way, or you shouldn't feel that way so much. Or the big one, I'm sorry you feel that way. Yeah, we've all heard one of those. Possibly in the past week. Possibly today. I know I heard, about 4 of those today. Emotional invalidation is everywhere. A friend sent me a recording they'd made of an appointment with their new therapist. It was a second appointment, and he'd brought up some things he wasn't happy about at that first session. We talked about that. I thought it was a good idea. It's really important to have boundaries with your therapist and be able to say if something's not working for them. Well, this very nice lady, after insisting she had 20 years of experience and was very familiar with situations like his, this very nice lady told him in a voice absolutely overflowing with compassion, "I'm sorry, truly, that you felt that way." Yeah, a therapist of 20 years pulled that passive-aggressive BS. A therapist. That's how normalized emotional invalidation is. I've had therapists at major trauma centers say to me, remember I got this one email insisting that, I had just been not organized enough to do a radio interview that often get organized at the last minute. But I remember this very, very important trauma doctor going, I see that you're trying to do something good here. Trying? I'm succeeding. What? But that's how normalized emotional invalidation is. People who kind of know better do it because it's an easy out. Now, the reason I'm so adamant about people not misusing I feel statements is I love validating people's feelings. It makes me happy as someone who went through so much I'm sorry you feel that way therapy for a decade. Validating people's feelings is great. I love doing it. I don't have have to agree with a person's opinion to validate their feelings. I don't. I just want to validate their feelings. It takes nothing from me and gives everything. Because usually finding common ground when you disagree is only really possible if both people believe the other person cares about their feelings. Otherwise, why bother? What's the point? Whatever. You don't like me, I don't like you. We'll stay away from each other, right? I love validating feelings. Because and that's why when someone's like, I feel, I'm like, yeah. And then the next thing that comes is that you are wrong or something like that. Like, I can't validate that. I feel misunderstood. I can validate that. But I can't validate that I'm wrong. Not about things like, I'm sorry you feel that way is totally emotionally invalidating, right? Now, this is doing it wrong, right? Nah, you're not supposed to say, I like validating feelings. No, you're supposed to be tough, right? You're supposed to be stone cold. You're supposed to not care about feelings, right? Tiger blood, Cobra Tate, all that stuff. Nah, yeah. You'll hear a lot of people claiming they don't care. But something is very, very wrong if that's actually true. I find the people who claim they don't care, the more they say it, the more they actually do care. These people who try so hard not to care, they're the ones who are absolutely desperate for their feelings to matter, which is why those people repeatedly freak out over video games, television shows, and movies. It's really not about the content. It's not about what everybody's fighting about. It's about feeling invalidated. And the problem with needing to seek validation from media is a TV show doesn't know you. It's not talking directly to you. You can't change it. It can't validate you directly. All it can do is show you a story that causes you to self-validate or self-invalidate. An example, I am loving the X-Men 97 cartoon at Disney+. It is both good on its own, but also when I was 13 or 14 years old back in like 1991, 1992, and the original X-Men cartoon, was on TV, Beast on that show, Henry McCoy, very validating to me, right? People were mean to him. Check. People thought his body was ugly and hated him for it. Check. He read a lot, used a lot of big words. Check. He liked to pick things up with his feet and to hang upside down. Yeah, man, that was me. His hair was a freakishly funny color. Hey, I was the only ginger around, okay, other than my mother and my sister. And they weren't even the same color red. I had that pale ginger. My sister had, the more socially acceptable, might be dyed skin, has a remote amount of pigment. No, I am the pale vampire ginger, right? So this show didn't know me, but it made me feel better about a world that treated me like a monster for things that either I couldn't control or I thought were good things. I mean, reading a lot, having an advanced vocabulary, that's supposed to be good, right? No, not when I was a kid. Nope. I was when I was this age, I was hiding in the bathroom at lunch hours so I didn't get beat up or possibly stabbed. So seeing a character on a TV show going through similar struggles, yeah, that helped. But I only needed that hope from a TV show because I was being constantly emotionally invalidated, abused, and threatened in my actual real life. My father was a big fan of Stop Crying or I'll Give You Something to Cry About, right? He read a bunch of the self-help books of the 1970s and 80s, and he really believed that emotions could be controlled. We know that emotions cannot be controlled. We can only control our thoughts, but emotions happen faster than thoughts. So We have to accept our emotions and process them so they do not control us. And because I couldn't learn to control my emotions, my father gave me something to cry about a little too often. And you can imagine what that was. But that's only one thing. My whole life, I've been told I've been too much or not enough. And a lot of people insisted they were helping me or just telling me the truth with these too much or not enough comments. But subjective judgments aren't facts. There's no truth here. They're just opinions. Here's the truth. There's no such thing as too sensitive. In fact, studies show the more intelligent you are, the more likely it is that you're also highly sensitive. Hank McCoy, right? Beast from X-Men. Yeah. Similarly, you're not overreacting. You're having a strong reaction, and that's valid. You're not taking something too personally. There's reasons you're personalizing something, and those reasons, those are valid. And no one ever just moved on or let something go. Even Elsa did not let it go after singing that song we've heard a gazillion freaking times. No, Elsa didn't let it go. She went from isolation insisted upon by her parents to isolation she's inflicted on herself. I just read it. Isolation's a horrible pun with the Snow Queen, but still, right? She went from her parents going, no, you have to seal yourself away, to her having this moment of, I feel free. Now I'm free. What are we going to do? We're going to build an ice castle and lock ourselves away. Yay, freedom. It's a glorious metaphor for how invalidation by others in childhood turns into self-invalidation in adulthood. Let's dive into that after the break with my facilitator, Aquila. Aquila has a unique combination of factors in her life that made this invalidation especially intense. And she actually volunteered to come and talk about this after she saw one of my YouTube videos. So this is going to be awesome. Questions, comments, concerns, Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Websites, nottherapyshow.com. Fill out the contact form, join our mailing list while you're there, or at Not Therapy Show on X, that's Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Used Threads more over the weekend. Go me. Wait, it's been the week. Yes, I've been using Threads. Back after this with more self-invalidation, how your abusers continue to hurt you after they're gone, after the break on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist, and we're still talking self-invalidation, how your abusers continue to hurt you after they're gone. And I'm joined this episode, this program, by Aquila, one of my It's Not Therapy facilitators, nicknamed the Bubbleheads. Aquila actually saw a video I did on my YouTube channel on my Manly Monday content about invalidation, and she was like, this really spoke to me. And we're like, let's put it on It's Not Therapy in a more targeted way. Now, Aquila, we said we can't flatten you to anything because you're biracial, you're a trans woman, and so obviously we can start a lot of different places here. What about the self-invalidation element popped for you that way?
Okay. Well, before I answer that, let me just go ahead and sort of set the table of what you mean by you can't really flatten me into a single facet. I'm a veteran. I'm a 13-year veteran of the U.S. Army. I survived an attempted murder when I was 15 years old because I wasn't Black enough, even though I was biracial. I am trans. I am married. I am a sibling. I'm so many things. There's no one facet. And I think some of the other facets go into how I process through the self-invalidation I, put myself through when I was a teenager. The big thing that people forget about, and this the same is true about being a veteran and being non-white and being trans is that none of those identity markers invalidates the fact that you're still a person.
Right.
One of my big coping mechanisms, but let's not jump in that kettle of fish quite yet. Um, I want to go back to the beginning. So, when I talk to people about being trans, the big thing that one of the big things that I've started to do is I ask, well, when did you know you were a woman? When did you know you were a man?
Mm-hmm.
And most people are like, I don't know. But for me, I knew that I wasn't a boy starting in about 4.5 to 5.5. That's when things started to go, hey, what's going on? This feels weird. And then it really kicked into high gear when I hit puberty, and I was living in Zaire at the time.
Okay.
That was around 1986, 87 ish. So I was around 11 years old when puberty kicked off, and I'm like, I hate this. I hate myself, because I could, over the years, I could see the changes, but more than that, I could feel how there was a mismatch between, what I now understand is what my brain was looking for versus
Mm-hmm.
what my body was generating. And it it felt ugly. I felt ugly. I didn't like the body that I lived in. And that never changed until maybe about 2 years ago. So when I was about 46, 47, was the first time I actually started to feel at home in my own body. And because it happened, pre-internet,
Mm-hmm.
I think in 1986, the internet was still under DARPA control.
Yeah.
So it's, telling yourself, oh, you're only imagining it, but every night basically going to bed, hoping that you'll wake up the opposite sex. Yeah, that is a very real thing.
And because it's internal, you really can't prove you have those thoughts, right? And I could hear people, imagining when you were talking about the circumstances surround you hitting puberty, I'm even afraid to say the statements, but this is why we have you on, because I know you're trained to hear this stuff. But oh well, you were in a strange place. Everybody hates themselves at puberty. The invalidation starts right there. Right?
Yes.
Everybody helpfully tries to talk you out of it.
Well, the thing was, there for me, there were nobody knew but me.
Yeah.
That I didn't even realize what was going on with me to have the language to start asking questions until I was 18. So 7 years, you know, or more
Mhm.
like 13 years from the onset of symptoms to when I knew what the symptoms meant, and then another 25 before
Yeah.
I was able to actually take action. And that lag brought me to some really, really, really dark places.
Mhm.
Um, and if you caught the episode on guns and mental health, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
I had, there were times when staring down that barrel very literally was, and a lot of that stemmed from the invalidation that I put myself through. You
Right.
know, this is all in your head. Well, it it was, but not in the way that people mean. You know,
Right.
it is in my head because it's your brain, your mind is the center of literally who you are, not the what, the
Right.
who.
That's right.
And there, when you have that mismatch of something that for the other 99.9% of the population
Yeah.
is so set that it doesn't even come to mind,
Right.
that you're like, well, why can't I be as comfortable as my brother, my father, my mother? Why aren't they showing the same symptoms
Mm-hmm.
that I'm experiencing? For a long time, I really did think that it was just my imagination. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I took that first dose of hormones that I understood that it's not just a mental component, it's physiological.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the dynamic of what was going on.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we're talking about the teen years, and there's this, I believe, false premise that if we just get teenagers rough for everybody, if we just focus on this protection, stuffing teenagers away where they can't hurt themselves or others until they turn some magical age. Some say it's 18, some say it's 25. If we just get them to adulthood, especially Black teens, then it'll be okay. There's this magic number, whether it's 25, 27, whatever. And what that ends up doing, I have found in work with youth, is it sets people up that their 20s are now undoing all the gaslighting and invalidation that they got in the teen years of those helpful adults just trying to get them over the over the adolescent finish line. Now, based on that and what you've just described, it just sounds like that urge, which is, let's face it, behind all the legislation of watchful waiting, not doing anything, not messing with anything, not affecting a teenager's fertility. It's all not, don't, stop, wait. This is all inherently invalidating for a teenager going, something is not right, is it not?
Okay, so for those listening, since this is an audio only podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I was about to sprain a muscle
Yes.
rolling my eyes. You know, like you, I grew up Gen X.
Mm-hmm.
Life was not safe.
No.
Life still isn't safe. And this whole watching and waiting and putting puberty blockers through, having kids on puberty blockers through their teen years. Well, guess what? One thing that I've learned being on hormones is when those hormones hit, you're going to go through puberty. I
Right.
just have better well, air quotes, better
More life experience. Yeah.
more life experience to both help and hinder, because going through puberty again at 45, there's a lot of shit that I went through in the intervening years. And oh, by the way, not all of it, I didn't pick up the exact right lessons for everything. I'm human just like everybody
Right.
else.
Right. Yeah.
And
And yeah, I mean, your face was going, because I mean, you work in advocacy, you've lived it, like you said, puberty sucks whenever you go through it. What does the just wait, just be sure, just, we're keeping you safe from yourself messaging. What does that do to someone?
well, I'm going to sum it up. I think I've sent you this meme about myself. I'm a 48-year-old teenage girl with combat experience.
Yeah.
That's what you wind up with. If
Right.
kids are allowed to go through their target gender puberty in their teen years, then They get it all out of their system. They go on to be a happy, healthy-ish adult based on,
Mm-hmm.
everything else. But the thing is that if you, and, this is a bit of projection, you know, since I'm going through puberty in my mid 40s, my skeletal system is locked and has been
Right.
since. So I don't get the wide hips. I don't get the walk. I don't get all the other things that I would if I could have transitioned in my teen years.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone who's trans does, they're indistinguishable from their contemporaries. And
Right.
the way I see the language uh, and the external validation being mapped onto trans people is that we want to be able to identify you so that we can control you, so that we can target you at our convenience. But when you have someone who went through the appropriate puberty,
Mm-hmm.
they blend in the
Mm.
mannerisms, the movement, the skeletal structure, all the subtle secondary sex characteristic cues that we pick up on for I see a woman, I see a man.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get those on, and you only figure it out if you're, being intimate with someone or they tell you,
Right.
which gives them control over their identity.
Okay, Aquila, you're not just a military veteran, you're a veteran of this program, so you know the drill. We gotta go to a break. Questions, comments, concerns, Liana at Not Therapy Show or nottherapyshow.com. Join the mailing list at Not Therapy Show on socials. We'll be back with more and Aquila, her journey to understand self-invalidation after this on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We're still in the interview, and I'm still talking to Aquila, one of my It's Not Therapy facilitators. And we've been talking with Aquila about her personal journey of understanding self-invalidation, because that's the topic of this night's show. Before the break, we were talking, what were we talking about? Let's just pick up. I want to go back to this idea, because I started peer counseling when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And one of the thinking behind it is when a teenager has an interaction with an adult, they get a lot of, you don't know what you want, just listen to us, just do what you're told, we know best for you. And teens, especially teens who are troubled, the core of it is nobody's listening to them. And so all we did was went, okay, let's just talk, hence peer. Let's just,
Mhm.
we are on the same plane, even though it was like an 11th grader with a 9th grader. Um, let's just talk. And the whole exercise was validating the fact that, well, this 14-year-old was in a group home where they were being exposed to you know, opposite sex or same sex people who were 17, 18, 19 years old. The situations were not safe. They were not affirming. And these kids just needed to talk. The problem with the safety first teen mandate is that in my opinion, you're creating this whole new host of problems where if it's all about just stopping the kid from committing crime, stopping the kid from a suicide attempt, you're not cultivating anything. You're not validating anything. You are sending this teen the message that they are the problem. They are a problem that has to be solved instead of a human that we're investing in. Did you experience any of that?
Well, my home was exceptionally atypical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my parents were both adept listeners.
That's good.
Um, and so there was exceedingly little invalidation
At home.
at home. So, and that was one of the reasons why the attempted murder, as I've come to call it, hit so hard, because that was such an alien concept for me.
Right.
Let me switch hats for a
Yeah.
minute and put on, a more military hat.
Yeah.
Safety is like security. It's not an end state.
Yeah.
It's a process. And in order to have a viable process, you need to understand, where are we? What's the threat landscape?
Right.
What specific threats are we trying to mitigate? And what iterative steps for process improvement are we going to put in place? You can't magically make the world safe. I had a fraternity brother, and when I met him, he wasn't always the best guy, but he was a solid, good-natured person. He eventually got to a point where he found success, self-acceptance. He got married to someone who brought out the best in him, and in his mid-30s and 40s, he blossomed into a wonderful human. He was walking down the street with his wife and some friends. He slipped off the sidewalk and fell and died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he hit
On
his
this,
head.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I was never privy to the details. And another one of my battle buddies, Sean David McDonald, God's
Mm-hmm.
love him. I served with him at Fort Polk, and we went to the Defense Information School, and he and I became very good friends.
Right.
And one day we were chatting, and he had just sent me a video of a group that I've come to fall in love with,
Mm-hmm.
and because he was a huge music nerd. 2 hours after that conversation, he died of an aneurysm.
Yeah, the aneurysms are. I lost a friend to an aneurysm that way too. It's shocking.
And he was in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Life isn't safe, but
Mm-hmm.
and the only way you can really counteract, you know, the peer pressure, and I only know this because I lived through it.
Yeah, yeah.
The only way to counteract the peer pressure to do things that are, bad for you, is to give someone a place where they feel safe, they feel wanted.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just their physical presence, but the interaction between you and the
Right.
other person feels wanted,
Right.
and where they feel safe to be themselves, to be vulnerable.
Right.
And that's the only way to really give children a sense of safety.
That feeling of being wanted, I think is spot on. That idea. It's not just that they want to keep you safe. It's that they think you have value. And that's what some of this protection first and only attitudes, I think, miss, again, it's raising kids to believe they are the problem.
Well, even worse,
Mm-hmm.
when I hear people talking about, well, I want to keep you safe,
Yeah.
it sounds like the kid is a possession,
Yep.
an object, that they don't have any value in and of themselves other than, oh, I must protect this thing,
Right.
not I must provide a safe place for this person to be a person.
Yeah.
And that, you're going to have to bleep me. That's going to fuck kids up more than anything else. If they feel like an object,
Mm-hmm.
why on God's earth are they going to trust you with
Yes.
something deep and meaningful about themselves?
I do think that you're right that providing a safe environment, it's a real balancing act, right? Because providing a safe, validating environment, you can only control what you can control. And we're relying on a series of interlocking systems, the schools, the greater community, uh, other parents, to create a series of interlocking systems where people are seen and safe and validated in different ways. Therefore, they are challenged and are given an opportunity to figure out who they are, where they feel like they fit, where they feel like they don't fit, to sort of try that stuff on and generate that experience to contextualize what's going on internally. How do you find, because you talk about the constant questioning yourself and how that left you very invalidated, what can people do to support people who are in that journey, who are still struggling with lingering self-invalidation?
Well, this is going to sound deceptively simple. You must listen. If you're invalidating yourself and you figure this out, ask the hard question of why.
Mm-hmm.
What is the goal?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you're going to screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to screw it up, and the more practice you get, the better you will get at it. But you have to listen with the intent to understand the other person.
Yeah.
That's the part that primarily parents forget. You're
Right.
raising you're raising a person. Yes, they may happen to inhabit the body of a child or the body of an adolescent,
Mm-hmm.
but the examples you set the examples for the rest of their life.
Right.
And if you give them bad examples, guess what? That is that is normal to that
Yeah.
person.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that
Now,
doesn't mean you can't set rules. That doesn't mean you can't parent, you can't have authority. I mean, the fact that people jump to this right away is telling, but you can have rules and still listen to your kid, listen to your spouse, listen to your friends, listen to your employees, and so on and so forth.
well, I mean, let's take it out of the context of parenting. I was in the army for 13 years. And in that time, you know, I had situations where I had to set and enforce boundaries. A great example was in the wake of uh, an Apache crash.
Mm-hmm.
And my duty was to uh, trawl social media, all kinds of different channels. So it was Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And it was reported to me that a junior soldier had decided to start their own YouTube channel. And they were doing things that were grossly inappropriate, not, as in like adult material, but things that you don't do as a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go, scoop this one up and change their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And she had an innate talent of talking to the camera. She would have made a really great public affairs soldier if she was inclined.
Mm-hmm.
But because she had crap leadership,
Mm-hmm.
that was the example that she set, or that was set for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was unable to show her the way, but I sat and listened to what she was trying to say
Mm-hmm.
to understand, well, okay, is there a way to say this without running afoul of the regulations?
Right. You tried to work with her.
Yeah, because, you know, I believe in the concept of the strategic private. That junior soldier who can either be a strategic asset or a
Mm-hmm.
strategic liability, depending on the kind of coaching that they get.
Right. And I do think you hit on something important that might be a good place to land on, that it doesn't matter what values you advocate if you're not setting an example of them. So if you're walking around performing, I'm making a too big deal, I'm overreacting, too much, not enough, I got this as a kid. It wasn't what I was told, it's what I saw adults doing that made me think you had to be obsessed with too much, not enough, perfection or else. Because adults were actively, and I mean, one of the big things that stuck with me my whole life is women obsessing over their weight and over how they look and beauty standards. And it didn't matter how many times someone said, "You're beautiful just the way you are," seeing older, very attractive adults going, "I'm so fat. That landed harder than the instruction, right?
Yeah.
And so invalidating environments don't have to be targeted at you if it's all around you. Would you agree?
Yeah. And the US Army NCO Creed has a little snippet in it that I really took to heart. And it's exceedingly difficult to realize that, or not realize, but to actuate this. All soldiers are entitled to outstanding leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I will provide that leadership. And as I transitioned out of the Army, that was a void that I was missing. So I had to rework that and, you know, treat my friends like my soldiers. Be the example, treat people with integrity and compassion, with an eye toward who is the person, what is the behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is a difficult path to walk, but it's so very necessary to undo the damage of self-invalidation, because that centers on, well, you're invalidating who and what,
Yeah.
because there's no distinction of what I do versus who I am.
Right. All right, Aquila, we could talk about this for hours. And if you want to see more from Aquila, want to hear more from Aquila, check out her YouTube channel, Arm T Aquila, Arm T like Auntie Arm T Aquila on YouTube. Aquila, thanks so much for coming on It's Not Therapy.
Thank you again for the gift of your time, Liana, and thank you to your audience for the gift of theirs.
We have to go to one more break before our final segment. When we come back, final thoughts on self-invalidation, how to stop doing it. Yeah, how to validate. Liana at Not Therapy Show, nottherapyshow.com. Contact form there at Not Therapy Show on socials. Back after the break on It's Not Therapy. following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana. I'm still not a therapist. We only have a few more minutes in this show about self-invalidation, how your abusers continue to hurt you after they're gone. And I promised before the break to talk to you about how to stop self-invalidating. Now, this is a very individual process. If you want one-on-one advice, please, nottherapyshow.com is my website, or Liana at Not Therapy Show is my email. Please contact me there. Love the feedback. All right, but the basics, the primers. The first thing I did to stop self-invalidating is take the word should. And every time you say it, should, I should do this, I shouldn't do this, stop, question. Because some shoulds are real. Children should be safe and protected. But if you weren't a safe and protected child like me, like Aquila, Aquila had a great home life, but outside, not so much. What does that mean? You can't change it now, right? Challenge every should and stop beating yourself up. You are not stupid. You are not worthless. You don't need to say these things for the world. And stop considering yourself too much or not enough. This is stuff we've been trained to do. Like I said, it's how your abusers continue to hurt you after they're gone. You're not too much. You're not enough. You are just you. We all have things we need to work on. And targeting those specifically on your own with a coach or a therapist, awesome. But that's, an improvement. That's getting better. But if you think you're not good enough, if you think you're too much of a burden on the people around you, that is not helping you do better. It's just making you feel worse. Focus on your positives. This is something I do with clients a lot. Make a list of the things you like about yourself, and when you are feeling like, oh, I shouldn't say that, all that stuff, go back to your positives. I am caring. I am diligent. I sincerely care about other people. These things matter more than your day-to-day successes and failures. And value your sensitivity. Remember I said that smart people are more sensitive, or at least tend to be? Yep. Being sensitive is the mark of a smart person, because feelings are feedback. And if you're not getting that data, if you're not getting the emotional data, recognizing it, naming it, and processing it, you're going to make less wise decisions. So I'm wisely going to stop because we are out of time, but you know what's coming. Thanks for listening tonight. Thanks to Aquila. And remember, your crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. Talk next week.